Hello, Polly.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you on. So we stumbled on each other in a corner of a room in person in January, but I'd heard of you and seen you. I'd been on you'd done something, like you were sort of in my world. I'd seen and was really loving what you were doing. And yeah, then we got to meet first in January and got talking, and I just knew that I'd love to get you
Yeah,
to
I think
talk
we
a
should
bit more
clarify
on
it was
it.
a book launch. We don't just hang out in dark corners of rooms.
Well, speak for yourself. Speak for yourself. It's where I meet all my best people.
The best people do
Yes.
tend to hang out, though, in the corners of the room. I'll say that for sure.
It was a book launch for Sarah Dalrymple's More Sales, and she was a guest of season 1.
Yeah.
So a bit of background. And I know you guys do quite a bit of work together.
Yeah, she's amazing.
So we're just going to kick off basically about the niche. Let's do it. So as we were saying, the first part is, how did you get started with your niche? But I think going backwards, really, like what started you on the path of doing it differently? Choice, necessity, all those things. Like what's led to you carving this space for yourself?
It's been a number of things. I was always fascinated by marketing. I actually grew up with my mum, who owned a graphic design agency. So we never went past a billboard without her making some kind of analysis as to what was going on in the billboard. We never watched an advert without her talking about positioning. there was always some kind of, I mean, she wouldn't call it positioning, but looking back, that's what it was. Even the way a film scene was set up, she'd be like, well, that's going to happen because that, I mean, we are just that analytical kind of creative family. But I went into normal workplaces. When I say that, I mean offices. I worked in, graphic design agencies. I was an account handler. I did that throughout my 20s. And so I was involved in the marketing world. I kind of wedged myself in there. I had no qualifications to do with marketing. I actually studied French and Greek. But I loved marketing, was obsessed with it. And then I got pregnant with my daughter. I was made redundant, and I was living in a small country called Gibraltar, where I found it really hard to get work because everyone was like, you're pregnant. And, of course, it's hard for anyone, really, to be honest with you, looking for work where everyone knows everyone's business. So they knew I was, having a child. And I told myself, I will just take this time out. I will just, take it easy. My partner was the main earner. So I thought I'll just, my then husband, actually. But in that time, I got really itchy feet. And I actually, the thing that kind of propelled me into entrepreneurialism, and this isn't something many people know, is that my daughter was born 5 weeks early, but my waters actually broke 11 weeks early. So I was alone in a hospital in Spain for about 6 weeks on bed rest before she came. And when I came back to Gibraltar, I felt really alone. And in those early mornings, doing those early morning feeds, I just thought, I wish I could be, I was like, I've got this phone here, I've got this ability to connect to people, but I don't have a community to tap into. So I decided to create it. So I launched a website called Mum on the Rock, which I ended up selling before I left Gibraltar. But it got me on stages, it got me a job as a TV panelist, it got me radio interviews, it got me talking alongside the chief minister on stage for the equivalent of TED Talks over there. It just literally, and it got me 2 magazine columns. I mean, it was insane. And actually, that's the beauty of niche, right? I found a problem. I created a solution. It was super niche, specifically for mums living in Gibraltar.
On the rock.
On the rock. Nobody else had done it yet. And it was funny because at the time I thought, Mumsnet exists, but nothing like that existed in Gibraltar. And so again, when people talk about original ideas, like context is everything, right? And because nothing existed in that context, it really took off. Unfortunately, when my divorce happened, I left my very stable, steady, kind of well-resourced life with my ex-husband, moved to the UK, and next thing I knew, I was on benefits in a very tiny flat with my children, wondering what the hell I'd done. Would we be living on beans and toast the rest of our lives? I mean, yeah, it was scary. And I actually applied for various marketing roles thinking, I just had achieved all of that, surely that would count for something. But all of these job roles had things like, we have Prosecco Thursdays and bowling Fridays and all these things that I was like, that's great if you're in your 20s, but not great for someone who's got 2 small children and is a single mum. And most things just weren't going to cover all our expenses. So when people talk about, oh, you're brave, you're an entrepreneur, I'm like, I didn't choose this life. This life chose me. Like, I just was like, okay, well, I'll look for freelance work while I wait for that perfect job to come along. And before I knew it, I loved freelance life. I loved the flexibility it gave me. I loved that I could pick my kids up from nursery. Then, it turned out my daughter was neurodiverse. I mean, I'm talking a lot here, sorry, but it's quite.
That's what this is for. Otherwise, it's just dead air.
But my daughter, it turned out that she has ADHD and autism. She got diagnosed autistic first. And that actually was really eye-opening for me because I saw all of it in myself too. And that also really helped me recognize, I used to have awful migraines when I worked in those busy marketing environments. I used to find it nerve-wracking picking up a phone. I'd be really happy in an in-person meeting, but I hated picking up a phone. And once I learned about autism and understood why I found things like picking up the phone nerve-wracking, sorry, there's a distraction in the corner, why I found picking up a phone nerve-wracking and why, is there background noise? Can you hear okay?
It's all fine.
Okay.
There was just a boom then, but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to just let him leave the room. So I was dropping off a cup of tea. I'm like, not the right time. So I'll go back.
Thank you, but no.
But when I go back to thinking about why that was so nerve-wracking, understanding autism, I understand that now. I understand that it was too much being in those corporate spaces. Those bright lights were the things that were giving me migraines. So I also knew that this is it. I'm committed to this now. And what really excited me, basically for 2 years I freelanced and I was supporting marketing startups or doing marketing for startups. But it was really kind of, at one point, I think I discovered one online business mentor and realized the power of, I guess, being your own niche, being your own personal brand and having people seek you and creating solutions for them rather than fitting into somebody else's box to support them. So in 2020, I did that. In February 2020, I launched as a personal brand, as a digital marketing expert that would help people with their digital marketing. So it was really broad back then. I used to just call it digital marketing made simple. So I didn't really know what I was doing entirely. But obviously it was a heyday of online business, right? So it wasn't difficult for me to kind of get in there. But what I felt really passionate about was recognizing the power of being a freelancer, the flexibility that gave me as a mother. It almost felt like a feminist movement to me. It just felt like I want to support more women to not have to work crazy long days to barely cover nursery fees or after school clubs and childcare, when actually they can build a business that allows them to be a mum and a business owner. So that was kind of what originally fueled me. And it's still there, to be honest. That's never gone away. I predominantly support women for that reason, because women are more disadvantaged in that, through that, in that sense. So that's where it all began.
The forcing to fit is exactly it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
It's the same drive for me. And I had the same thing with those agencies. I'd find myself going in later and later and staying later and later. And what I realized was I was doing it so I avoided people. It was getting in around 11, 12, but I'd stay till 8 or 9 because most people left at 6. It gave me 3 hours to do work without the phone ringing and without anybody around and just having the place to myself. And you realize you're doing things but you don't understand why. And I could only do that because I didn't have kids. So obviously, if you do have kids, that's not an option. You're forced into those times and those Prosecco Thursdays and those kind of things.
Yes, exactly. All this forced socializing that you don't actually. I loved it in my 20s. I loved all the networking. That was one of the main things I loved about marketing, was all the wonderful people I got to meet. But it's much nicer that now I get to do it on my own terms and meet wonderful people like you when I go to book launches, rather than kind of it feeling forced,
Yeah. No, it's similarities there. Happens a lot that on here. It's quite good. It's obviously you're speaking to like minds basically, aren't you? So that's where that happens. But I think as well, so I really love as well, I was listening because you have your podcast.
Yes.
The name of the podcast again? I've been listening to
Make
it
more
all
money.
Make
more money without selling your soul. Funny enough named, because my podcast producer said, I was like, I don't know what to call it. And she's like, well, what do you help people do? And I was like, well, make more money without selling your soul. She's like, that's it. And I was like, okay.
No, and I love it because there was a name of. So I was listening to some this morning, and I certainly check it out, everyone. There was a name that you had before that. So you were doing a podcast before, and it was a really, like you said yourself. So I'm not no shade. It was a really boring, like serious name.
Yeah, Embodied Business Revolution, I called it.
There you go. So I think what's interesting as well is for people to see those steps, because one of the podcasts, when I was looking through the chapters, there's some great ones. And one of them, of course, was Tanisha or not Tanisha. Obviously, I had to have a listen of that. And a point that you had that I totally agree with and I absolutely love is this thing about being a generalist first, like getting going, and then that getting to your niche. Like you say, where you were saying, I'm a digital marketer. And that now that feels really broad. But at the same time, it's a step to niching down, because it's just a step closer. And then you're doing that. And then within doing that, you're finding out which part of that you really love and who you love doing that for. And it was funny because I was thinking about it. I was like, all my clients are 10 years in. So they've got a lot of data experience. Things that they've tried, things that they've done. And we literally just get down to the thing that's lighting them up and that they just want to do more of, and that where they can level up and all those things. So I just thought that was a really excellent point. And you were saying about, I think it'd be good to hear about how you've done that with your brand, because you've got niche as to where you are now. So where did that go when you went from I'm a digital marketer and then the Facebook ads and to where you are now? Like, how's those steps gone for you, that generalist to niche and down? How's that worked for you?
I think the most important thing is almost more about the intention we bring to business and just being endlessly curious and leaning into what, when you shared earlier about the stuff that lights you up, when you allow that to be your beacon as you go into online business, like, it won't steer you wrong. And I think one of the challenging things about the online space is there's so many people selling speed. Like this morning, I saw someone say, create a sales page in 10 minutes. I'm like, yeah, you can do that with ChatGPT. Will it be a good sales page? Probably not. Like, it actually upsets me when I see people kind of, like, what's wrong with the intentionality of sitting down for one business day and creating a knock it out the park sales page that people won't forget? Like,
and enjoy it. Like, and spend the time to really enjoy this thing that you're going to love helping people with.
It's a valuable business asset, this whole kind of disposable approach to online business, that you just create a new offer every single month, create sales pages in 10 minutes. Like, people are shooting themselves in the foot with that approach, and particularly if you're in business for a long time and you're still taking that approach, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. So in terms of my journey, when I started out, I actually did something that I think was kind of sensible. I started out with, I actually had a one-to-one service, which at the time was Facebook ads management. But what I found, and actually that's how my offers evolved, because I came into online business thinking, I'm running Facebook ads for coaches. I'd started off doing some e-commerce, but I didn't like it. Just wasn't enjoyable. Again, I think it's that whole human connection piece. Like, I loved supporting coaches because I loved seeing individuals succeed. And I loved that they were doing good in the world and that I was learning about such amazing things. Like, there were life coaches, spiritual coaches, well-being coaches. And it opened my eyes to a whole new world that I wasn't aware of before. Like, subconscious was not even on my radar back in 2020 before
That's I started the point.
Yeah. God. You're hilarious. That's so true. Oh my God, you totally got me there. But yeah, I wasn't aware of it.
I know what you mean. Sorry.
Anyway, you're cracking me up. But yeah, so I was introduced to all these wonderful human beings. But the one thing I saw that they all had in common, so they were more established than me, evidently, because that's why they were running ads. Most of them, they'd been, their own personal brand, usually 2 to 3 years. But the one thing I saw, like I was looking at like who are the ones, because obviously as an ads manager, you want people to stay on and work with you for a long time. And the last thing you want is someone coming in, throwing their money at you, throwing the money at the ads, and then being like, oh God, it's not worked in the first like 2 weeks. I now need to stop all of this. So I had to get really, really good at recognizing what were the signs of someone who was destined to be successful, so that it was a sure bet taking them on as a client. And then I also similarly had to obviously recognize what was a red flag for the fact that they were not going to be successful. And so in learning all of these things and learning the importance of data and the importance of positioning, the importance of a sales page that actually works, and an offer, of course, like, you know, it doesn't matter how many new eyeballs you get on a rubbish offer. Like if the offer's rubbish, it's just going to, you're just magnifying that rubbishness. You're not actually going to sell it. But what I saw increasingly was I kept on turning away potential ad clients because I would vet their funnels and say, you are not ready, my friend, in the nicest way possible. And then I was like, but I can see what they need to be doing. Yeah. And I started to recognize that's actually quite a skill. Yeah. A skill that people would pay me for. And people started to reflect me as an ads manager. They were like, well, we hired you because we needed help with ads, but actually you basically become our business strategist. Like, and then obviously any business mentor I had at the time would always say, and you should be charging for that. But I didn't have the confidence, you know? But eventually I basically got to the stage where I started phasing out my ad clients, accepting less and less, and focusing on developing offers, group programs that enabled me to share this knowledge. And in 2021, I went all in. After a year actually of being in a group program where we were encouraged to live launch. And I tried to do it alongside running my ads, and I just got so burnt out. It was exhausting. I actually had long COVID after COVID in 2020. And so my energy levels were like a really valuable resource that I had to manage really, really carefully. And what I recognized was, you know, this coach at the time was saying live launch every 2 months, or if she was actually saying every month. But some people were like, I'm going to do it every other month. And I was like, even every other month sounds like hell to me. So I kind of did lots of investigating around what evergreen marketing was. And so basically all the pieces fell together. It was essentially similar to Mum on the Rock, where I looked at, okay, here's the problem. People are being told to live launch all the time. Here's the problem. Not everyone needs to be doing this. Bearing in mind, one of my first ad clients who I worked with in 2020 made £1 million within 6 months with an entirely passive evergreen offer. She and I have been working together, we still are, for 4 years with this, with this evergreen funnel. So I'd worked firsthand on various evergreen funnels that were immensely successful. I'd done a lot of testing and tweaking alongside these clients to know what worked. So I decided to wrap all of that up into an experience. And at the time, I called it Scale with the Power of One. But niche was a problem for me because at the time, evergreen was the niche. Like I was like, well, hardly anyone's talking about evergreen. But what I recognized was going to become the case was that more and more people were going to be talking about evergreen. And so that couldn't be. And also, someone once said to me in terms of PR, if someone's going to introduce you on a stage, what are they introducing you as? And I thought, they can't introduce me as like the evergreen business mentor. Like nobody in the real world would know what on earth that was. And I wanted to have more staying power than that, you know?
And a bit more personality and vibe and stuff. So
yeah. And as it comes, with niche, I think the biggest challenge that we all have is that we are all ultimately our own niche, but the majority of us haven't found the words for it. I think there is a mindset work around it as well, in terms of giving yourself permission to trust that you get to attract in
that is
those like-minded souls you want.
It's absolutely huge. It's like when we say about the forcing to fit, there's a lot of unlearning and unpacking to do.
Yes.
In terms of we get started for whatever reasons, all different reasons, necessity, redundancy, choice, like free will choice. But it's all this like you're getting going and feeling like you need to prove yourself, particularly as women. And if any work comes in, you're like, oh, great, yeah, no, I'll do that. And then eventually you often find yourself doing things you don't necessarily want to be doing. And the only person responsible for that is you, but we forget that we have a choice. And I think that permission work is vital.
Yeah, 100%. It's this kind of, I often talk to my clients about it in terms of kind of saying it's like you need to start with you, your values, what your strengthiest strengths are, as I refer to them, in terms of like where do you.
By the way, I love that. I've written it down.
I love that. But where do you get your clients their best results? So that's the cerebral piece. and obviously it's a heart piece too. But then there's also the piece where I kind of say, and it's a co-creation in terms of like, what language is your ideal client using around that problem? And, you know, where are they at and what problem are you solving for them? And when you can marry those two pieces together, then you've got a really strong niche in my mind. Like in terms of offers, like when I see someone who can marry both those pieces, that's the most important thing. But I also think it's really important. And I often say this to my clients because they often get stuck in this sense of like inaction when they think too much about these things because they're so afraid of getting it wrong. And as you can see from talking to me, like obviously my business has like existed for like over 4 years now. You know, I've been through so many evolutions, like you say, the embodied business revolution, which I like to forget about. You know, which
I think it's good to hear these things. I've come out with some corkers in the past as well.
But you know, I think ultimately the most important thing to recognize with any kind of business growth is it's about the learning. So as long as we can be open and receptive to those learnings, like for me, I found myself really struggling to record for the embodied business revolution because I felt like I needed to be somebody that I'm not. I thought I need to be calm and grounded and speak really slowly and be that, you know, and
Late night radio.
I was like, that's not me. And I love the people in my world who are like that, but that's not me. And so, you know, make more money without selling your souls, more tongue in cheek, more daft, more like who I am, you know, and also from a marketing perspective, more catchy. You know, someone's going to be like, make more money. I'm curious to know more. And obviously that's similarly trickled into the most recent brand photo shoot I did.
Which you know, I love. And that was, is it with, I wrote a name down, Ali
Mappletoft, yeah.
Mappletoft.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll put a link to your website in the show notes, but I just love how different and ballsy it is. And so not forcing to fit, it's untrue.
Yeah, I lost quite a few new followers actually when I launched it, which didn't surprise me at all. But it was one of those moments where, you know, I think you develop a resilience the longer you're in online business and you start to have a bit more of a fuck it moment where you just think, actually, life is too short. And I did think about, you know, one of the people I really admire in the online business space is Elizabeth Goddard. And I've never actually worked with her, but I've never forgotten her because she's always wearing her giraffe onesie. And every time I see and so I've just never, her name is never a name I struggle to recall because I just see that vision. And so similarly, you know, myself with the pink background and the towel around my head, the amount of people who'd message me and say, every time I see your profile, I have to stop because I'm like, what is that on her head? Even if I know it's the towel. And I'm like, all of that stuff, you know, like it's, you know, for so many of my clients, I'm always encouraging them to be their biggest, boldest, most fully expressed selves in their business because life's too short not to. But I hadn't really truly unleashed that for myself.
Yes.
But it's been so much fun doing it.
Because it fits the other thing when I was listening to your podcast on it was when you'd done that unpacking of your own things, and it was something you'd said about cushy.
Yeah.
And it was the cushy business. And I think it's when we can own that language ourselves. So I had the fuck it, I'm going niche. And I literally just said it and somebody laughed. And so I put it on a badge and a t-shirt and then more people laughed. So then I was like, okay. And it was a way of making brand strategy my own, but also relatable to people who weren't in agency world. Because they're like, why do I need that if, you know, I'm not Nike?
Yeah.
And it was, and it made it fun as well. Instead of like, you know, we're doing these businesses and we're working hard, but essentially you're building a life and a business that you want to work for you, that you want to enjoy.
Yeah.
And you can get dressed up and work with an amazing woman to take amazing photos and talk about it in a way that, and also does really good business. That's what I love.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the truth of the matter is like it's increasingly saturated the online space.
Yeah.
We even did a podcast episode, me and Ali, on like, you know, the girl next door brand is dead, which is not true. That was a bit clickbaity. But for me, that was definitely a reflection of how I felt. I thought I'm not here to be palatable. I'm not here to be relatable. I am here to change your world and help you change yours. And I'm here to like be that, you know, if I can have that level of fuck itness about how I approach my business, I want to give you that permission slip too. Because again, when I look at all my clients who are the most successful, they are the ones who are, I hate to use the word most embodied in their mission, but it is that whole piece around like they've given themselves that permission slip to be unapologetically themselves. And that's really hard work. Like you said, there's a lot of conditioning to work through. But you know, in this day and age, you cannot afford to not have a strong niche. You know, when people talk about, there's a lot of people talking about cost of living crisis, how it's harder than ever in the online business space. And the way I see, like, the antidote to that is, you know, one, having an offer that actually does what it says it does, which unfortunately various people don't have. And secondly, and probably most importantly, is having that strong niche, making yourself unforgettable. So you are that person with the, you know, I don't know, with the towel on her head, or you are that, so that people at least visually remember you, so they can look for you later when they want to work with you. It's recognizing launching alone is not going to be enough. People are increasingly saying launches don't have the same impact they used to. They can do in certain contexts. Again, I'm not like generalizing here, but at the same time, for the average small brand, being able to sell every day is way more important than the ability to sell every month or every 2 months with a launch.
It's the walking the walk as well that I always, any advice that I give clients, anything that we went through, is all stuff I've done myself.
Love that.
And it's all, as well, it's what you're saying there as well. Sorry, one moment, my brain went. But it's the, so edit that bit. So when you were saying about launches changing, like when people say about, oh, niche, I'm just doing the same thing, it means doing the same thing or just doing one thing. But that's really rigid, and it isn't. You need to be fluid and being able to move with it, because everything changes. Like in the last 4 years, even, like how things are working and how things are marketing. So if you're strong on your niche itself, that can go in many different ways, like you're saying with yourself. And it's recognizing and being able to see that. So I don't see it as restrictive. I see it as you get seen as who you are, and then you can keep doing these things in different ways. And what you said really at the beginning about being curious, like keep learning, keep being curious, keep trying new things, being playful with what you're doing as well.
Yeah, I see it as the biggest, like, business insurance policy, a strong niche, because ultimately when people trust you as a brand, when they know what you stand for, if suddenly no one wants to be in group programs anymore, for example, I'm not saying they do, but if they didn't,
Yeah.
whatever alternative you create, people will still trust you as a brand because they trust what you stand for and they want to be in your world. And it gives you a lot of flexibility with how, you know, people kind of say to me, what if I attract someone who's here? Or what if I attract someone who's like, I'm sorry, just a visual. What if I attract someone who's like, I don't know, super premium? What do I do if I attract someone who's like needing a group program? And I'm like, when you have a strong brand, like there's a way to make all these pieces work.
Yeah.
It's when you look at everything in a really dissected way, offer by offer, client by client, that it really confuses things. Like just having that strong core nucleus to your business, which is a strong brand, is absolutely everything.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So where do you, talking, I think that's a good segue then into saying about what's coming next for you, either in terms of something you've actually got lined up, or where does your brain go when it's like, this could be some really interesting things to try out in the future?
Well, since the kind of introduction of my new brand at the beginning of, well, I say new brand, but kind of the evolution of my brand at the beginning of the year and the new website, there's been a kind of offer suite tidy up. So I've been gradually introducing funnel offers, but really, really, really slowly. Like I've been wanting to really perfect them and make sure they are the best in the industry. I mean, I can't teach people on how to create group programs and not create exemplary experiences myself. So there's a lot of effort and time going into that. So I've actually given myself a bit of a kind of break between now and September
there, Polly.
before I enroll anyone else into any of my group courses. I'm going to have a low ticket offer I'm selling in the meantime, but I'm also creating space and time to write the Cushy business book. So there's quite a few things coming. But it's been really nice to create a business that allows me to take that space and, you know, focus on, you know, have enough kind of recurring revenue to take
Polly,
that time.
Polly, it froze
No.
about 20 seconds ago. I was like, ah. I've got my internet plugged in because we had a Wi-Fi problem a little while ago, so I don't know why it did it. So I'm really sorry. If we could just
of course
rewind.
I'm trying to remember where I started. Maybe I should start again because I can't remember exactly.
It's just done it again. Why is that doing that?
Trying to remember what I last said from 20 seconds ago.
And then at which point it was. So we were talking about what's coming next. So you were saying about tidying up your office.
Obviously, yeah.
So, tidying up your office suite and making programs slowly. So I think what I wanted to say as well was that I'm a big fan of this, like the not rushed, not the fast pace, doing stuff with intention is lovely. Anyway, that's where we were at. Clearing up the office suite. Clearing up the office suite and making group programs so that you're doing what you're doing for your clients as well. So, and it was for what's coming next.
Yeah, so walking the talk. And I mean, essentially, I'm getting married in July and then going to Sri Lanka for 3 weeks in August. So I decided it felt like a good thing for me to actually just close down my groups for that time period so that I can just be really present. Because if I'm being really honest, and let's be honest here, the last 4 years have been pretty intense. You know, I did get myself off benefits. I did move my family into a house. We did get a cat. And I got my business to the stage where it's at multi-six figures, but that hasn't been without some kind of sacrifice along the way. And while my business is significantly, hence why I love the word cushier, one of the things that felt like the ultimate flex would be to finally take a holiday without a laptop, which I've not done since 2019. So when we go to Sri Lanka, I will be laptop free. And then in September, that's giving me a nice timeline to kind of update my offers so I can be inviting people into some group offerings. And I'm hoping to create the spaciousness to also start writing the Cushy business book, which title is yet to be defined, but it's going to be all about the cushy business philosophy, you know.
I don't see anything wrong with the Cushy business book. I'm all about does what and niche talks. I'm all about like does what it says on the tin.
Yeah, no, I'm super duper excited by it. I've got some really big ideas for it. So my main priority right now is just deep. Like for me, I just like having less clients and really deep impact for those few clients I have. At one point, my goal with Evergreen was to scale and go wide. And what I've recognized recently, that just does not suit my neurodiverse brain. It doesn't matter how well I organize those larger containers. I just don't get joy from it. So I've really, again, it's one of those moments where I've had to reprioritize.
It's really lovely hearing you say that because I'm having the same experience, and I was like realizing I was trying to do this, and I was like fighting myself. Like, and that's another thing. This is a constant work. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like we fall off all the time. Like, what should I be doing? What do you want to be doing?
Yes, exactly. I had to tune in with what do I actually want? What does success actually look like? At one point, I wanted to make 100K months just because, you know, I could because I have the skills and knowledge. Why not? And actually, I was like, but I considered the number of clients I'd need to have to achieve that and the size of my team for me to feel like I could manage that in a way that felt within integrity. And that just suddenly felt like a larger ship a ship that I don't want to be like the master of, you know? And I was like, what does feel good? So I put it down on paper and I was like, less clients, deeper impact. And like you say, the more experienced clients who are craving that next level of support around hiring and advertising and scaling, and realizing just because I'm not choosing to do that doesn't mean I can't continue supporting my clients in that same realm, you know?
Yeah. And I had a saying as well. It was like, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yes,
because
100%.
I can do lots of things.
Yeah, exactly.
But then I was trying to do lots of things, and that for me, yours was in the digital marketing, mine was in the branding side of things, and the strategy part and the niche finding part was the bit that I loved, but it was almost like I didn't even value it myself because it was something I found easy. It's this zone of genius, so you almost don't value it. We've had this conversation before. Where you don't value it enough. So then because I can do design and all that, I can do design. Somebody's just rung the doorbell. I'll go back to it. Because I could do all of the other things and extra bits aside of it and run event, do this and do that, doesn't mean that you should. And actually it was that work that I loved and like narrowed it right down to that. And then you can just go deeper on it. And you think, oh, is it enough? Of course it's enough. It's the thing that you love doing. So you get absolutely in it and hyper-focused for that neuro.
Yeah.
Like skill. Like I absolutely love hyper-focusing on a client and just getting really into what they're about.
Me
And then,
too. Me
and
too.
I just love it. And I can see all those bits in it. And when you see that work and you see the impact it has on people, because it's the work that you're doing in that zone of genius for people. So it has the biggest effect on them. It's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone wins, but it is a bold move.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. And like you say, it's just leaning, like just because there's lots of other people talking about a certain measure of success doesn't mean it has to be yours.
Well, I love that. That's, I think, what a great place to finish.
Thanks so much for having
Thank
me.
you.
It's so much fun.
Thank you so much, Polly. I'm just gonna stop that.